This episode is sponsored by Trailblazers. It's May, and you know what that means. It's National Bike Month. Trailblazers is hosting this region's bike challenge and will be hosting fun challenges and events you can participate in to win all month long. All you have to do is log your rides. For more information, visit www.love2ride.net/NW-Arkansas. Hope to see you out on the trails. Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank.
Hey, this is Gary Head at Signature Bank of Arkansas. We founded Signature Bank in 2005 with local ownership to serve our communities with the best bankers with the most authority to do business. We have succeeded in growing our bank to over $875 million in assets. We have locations in Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, Brinkley, and we have recently expanded to Harrison and Jonesboro. We have 176 teammates in climbing. Our teammates love our communities and the customers that we serve. We're always here to serve and eager to do so. As Chairman and CEO, I welcome your call to have the opportunity to serve you. Please call 479-684-3700 or visit online at signature.bank and tell them that you heard about us at I Am Northwest Arkansas. Signature Bank of Arkansas is a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Without further ado, here's our fearless host, Randy Wilburn.
What is going on? I am Northwest Arkansas. How are you guys doing this morning? Well, depending on when you're listening to this, it could also be afternoon, but I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you today for what I'm terming a special episode of the podcast. This wasn't planned. This time last week, if you had said, Randy, are you doing this episode? I would have said no, because things happen in life sometimes, and it requires you to pivot even at a moment's notice. And so I wanted to share a simple story with you about a family member that I just lost. I married a twin. Her name is Nicola. She has a twin sister named Nadine. And Nicola and I met in Boston, and we met at church, right? Where a lot of people meet, or at least some people do. But we met at church, and I took a liking to Nicola, and we eventually got married. But before we got married, Nicola's twin sister, who was dating a gentleman named Aaron, and they were college sweethearts. They had basically been dating since they entered school at Austin P there in Tennessee, and I can remember, getting the talk with Aaron early on before Nicole and I got married, and he was kind of telling me about his relationship with Nadine and how important she was to him, and how much he was looking forward to making her life special. They had planned to get married, and they did get married, and I want to say they got married in October October of 2000. And the reason why I remember specifically when they got married is because my father had passed away, and we literally buried him one day. I was on a plane that night, and the next day Aaron and Nadine got married. And that's when the storybook romance started, right? I mean, they were already together, but that's as they continued to grow in their love for each other. And then 6 months later, boom, Nicole and I got married in 2001, and life was good. They were living in Atlanta. I happened to be living in Atlanta, so Nicole and I were there, and the twin sisters were together. And we both kind of, it was a race, right, to see who could start their family the fastest. Although we did take some time to be with each other. I'll never forget, we took a very memorable trip to Mobile, Alabama, and we went to Mobile like the weekend before 9/11, and of course, those events changed everything for a lot of people. But that was a very, very special vacation that we had without kids. And so it was very memorable. And we did a couple of getaways like that, as young couples do. And we just had a lot of fun. And I guess I'm saying all this to say that this past week I was on a business trip, and I got to my hotel early Thursday morning, and my wife called me, to tell me that my brother-in-law Aaron had heart attack. And I figured, okay, well, I know he'd had some heart issues before, and they were kind of dealing with it, so I didn't think a whole lot of it. And then unfortunately, my wife called me back 20 minutes later and said Aaron's dead. And everything in my body just stopped, and I was like, this can't be. I literally was talking to this guy a couple of hours before, as we were making plans to take our kids and do something special with them while our wives celebrated their shared 50th birthday, which was coming up in a couple of weeks, and we were all going to be together in Boston. Well, suffice it to say, that ain't happening, because, the good Lord needed a big angel and decided to call Aaron home. And I'm still in shock to this moment, but each day gets a little bit better as I think about his life. And so you'll have to indulge me. You'll have to indulge this moment of reflection, because it's the only way that I know how to reflect, is to talk about it, is to tell stories. And Aaron was bigger than life. He was 6'5". He played high school football at a high level. He got recruited. I want to say he did get a football scholarship to Austin Peay. So he was an outstanding football player, and just a bigger than life individual. Would literally give you the shirt off his back. And that's just who Aaron was. And so he was my brother-in-law. He was my brother. And I enjoyed being around him. We talked about a lot of different things, and he was passionate about investing, and there was just so much that he was passionate about. But he was more than anything, he was passionate about helping people, which was why he ultimately got into being a social worker. And Aaron had a heart of gold. Every time I talked to him, I'm like, man, you are working hard, man, with those kids. He worked a lot with kids that came from single family homes, kids that had other social issues that they were struggling with, and Aaron would help them adjust. And he would tell me these stories about these kids and what they were going through. And I mean, he just had a heart of gold. He was always looking out for the kids. He was always looking out and making sure that even in the small instances where they had interactions with him, that they were extremely positive interactions. And sometimes I remember him telling me stories of kids that he would have to really put in check, maybe because of how they were treating their mother or a grandparent or something like that. And, he had to remind them, but he was a big dude. So you weren't going to mess with him, and you weren't going to give him too hard of a time, because he looked like he would knock you out. And so I think people would mistake, just because he was a big dude, and say, oh, well, this guy might be meanie, but he was the biggest softy ever. And he was especially a softy for his kids. And, my wife and I, we were the first ones out of the gate with a child. We had Joshua in 2005, and Aaron and Nadine had Sydney in 2000. Later on that year, they had Sydney. So they were about 7 months apart, our two oldest kids. And then the next year we had another child, Nathan, and then they had another child, Christian, beautiful boy with a great smile. And then we took a break. And Aaron and Nadine were like, you know what, we want to have a bunch of kids. And we were like, well, have at it. And so they added London to the mix, a beautiful young lady. And that's London with a Y-N. And And then we had little Aiden, or the mayor, or Little Nugget, as so many know him as. But we had him in 2010. And then we just figured, okay, we're both set at 3. But Aaron and Nadine pushed one more out. They had little Zachariah, and just the cutest little kid ever. He was the cutest little baby with these twinkling eyes. And I said, okay, are you guys done now? And I think Aaron said, yeah, I'm not, I know we want one, but man, it's these kids are getting expensive. So, they stopped at 4. We stopped at 3, and that was it. So the twin girls had 7 kids between them, which was great. And Aaron and I, we would revel in how fast these kids were growing up, and just the experiences having, a number of kids. We were both outnumbered. We were both playing zone as parents, right? We couldn't play man to man because we had more kids than we had hands. So, we certainly, enjoyed raising our families together. And, Aaron was just a special dude. He would, like I said earlier, he would give you the shirt off his back. And there was just always something, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's just always something about him. His countenance was always positive, no matter what he was going through or what he was dealing with. He lost his mom a couple of years ago, and he unfortunately had to bury his dad just 3 months ago. So he's dealt with a lot of loss in his life. And I think, for me, as I reflect now, and again, as I said, even at the time of recording this, I'm still in shock that he's no longer here. I keep thinking this is just a bad dream. I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be good. And we've got plans coming up in a couple of weeks when we all get together to celebrate the wife's 50th birthday. But that's not going to happen. And so now all I have are the memories. And I'm using this podcast as a way to kind of reflect some of those memories. And so I appreciate you indulging me in this particular episode. It's not specifically about Northwest Arkansas, although they did come to visit us here in Northwest Arkansas a couple of times, and the most recent time being last summer. And I took Aaron to Catfish Hole because my wife doesn't like Catfish Hole, but I love it. And so I only get to go there like on Father's Day. And whenever somebody comes in from out of town, and Aaron, I mentioned it to him, and he was like, oh man, I love catfish. And I knew he loved it. And so we went to Catfish Hole and we sat down, and man, we enjoyed those hush puppies and that catfish and just had a good conversation. And it wasn't always that we were together because of where we lived. And of course, the pandemic slowed things down, and I didn't see him as frequently over the last few years for obvious reasons. And so when they came and surprised us this past August of 2021, it was great. And we had them, they got an Airbnb in Fayetteville and just had an amazing time. And, he was like, man, I got to come back again, and we're going to do this again. And, hopefully take advantage of some of the other things that are happening around here. Cause our kids just love being with each other. They are like brothers and sisters as opposed to being cousins. And I'm so thankful for that. And, it's just hard thinking about the fact that he's not going to be around to see those kids grow up. And, I know other people deal with this and deal with loss like that, but Aaron was 48 years old. He was young. I mean, I look at him as a peer. I mean, I have him by a couple of years, but I still looked at him as somebody that's around my age that, it could be me. I could have passed away. And so it just calls into question your own mortality when you have friends and people close to you and your generation die. It's one thing when you have a parent or a grandparent pass away, and, that's an intergenerational loss. But when you have a generational loss or somebody that is your peer, it's a much different loss. At least for me, it is. And it'd be interested to know what your thoughts are about that, after you've listened to this episode, because I think we all grieve. We all deal with loss differently. And honestly, this is my way of grieving, is to celebrate this man's life, because not only did he mean so much to his own personal family, but he meant so much to me. And, it's one of those things where we don't always get our flowers while we're still around. But I think it's important for us to be mindful of handing out flowers as often as possible. And flowers are really a metaphor for accolades and a metaphor for acknowledgement of how special somebody is in your life. I've heard that often, right? It's like, man, it's a shame that people get so many great flowers and so many accolades and they were so amazing after you're dead. It's like, I can't hear that, but I'm doing the best that I can right now with what I have and the platform that I have to kind of just put out there in the world that, hey, you need to be handing out your flowers while your loved ones are alive. And while as much as I told Aaron how great of a man I thought he was, and, I loved how he led by example and really just loved up on his kids and just treated Nadine like the queen that she is. I wish I had said more, honestly. I wish I had shared more. And that opportunity will never come. I do believe I'll see him again. I believe in that we transcend this time and space and this body that we're in, and that while the body may physically go away, that we die, that the soul lives on. I really do believe that. And I know that I will see him again. I know because of the promises that I live on based on my Bible. And, I don't know where you fall within that. If you're a believer, if you're not, it's fine. I feel that way about my relationship with Aaron, that it will transcend this time and that we will meet again. And so, and that we'll all be together again, the whole family, everybody, because, our time here on earth is really short and you got to make the most of it. And so I think if nothing else, my own mortality, some of the things that I want to do in my life, I had to really think about that Thursday after processing the loss of Aaron and the fact that he was here 1 second and he's gone the next. And, it would be similar to losing somebody to a car accident that you would just talk to. And we know these things happen in life, right? And so, it never makes it easy. It really doesn't. But I just figured I would take some time to reflect on the life that this man led. And, I think we all deal with loss. We all deal with loss and we all deal with grief in our own way. And so today I really want to encourage you, if nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this, is to cherish those that are around you that you really care about, and recognize that you can and you should make a difference in other people's lives to the point where they will miss you if you're gone. And I miss Aaron, and it's just really hard for me. And I will continue to keep him in my heart. And now I'm going to play a different role for his kids than I had originally planned to play, right? I was just going to be Uncle Randy. It's always cool to have Uncle Randy because, when the kids are, when the kids are acting up or, whatever, it's like, Uncle Randy gets the best part of it, right? He doesn't have to discipline and all this other stuff. I mean, I would discipline a kid, don't get me wrong, but now I gotta kind of do all of that, right? And still love up on them and make sure that they've got what they need. And now I have 7 kids to focus on beyond just 3. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were on, I pray for them every day. I love those kids as if they're my own, but now I have to step up my game. So y'all pray for me, because I went from 3 kids to 7. I've got to be intentional about staying in touch with them on a regular basis. I've got to do things that I wouldn't have necessarily had to do because they have their father, and now they don't have their father. They have their mother still, but they don't have their father. And so, a lot of times when loss comes about, it causes us to have to rise up to a whole different level of responsibility, whatever that might be. And I'm sure some of you can identify with that. And, I would just encourage you to fight the good fight through it, even when you are down or you're struggling. when, trying to care for loved ones that maybe somebody else would have normally been caring for, but because they're no longer here, you have to step in and fill that void. And, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. That's for sure. And, I always think about Aaron. It's like, because Aaron was such a tall guy, I'm 6'2", but he's 6'5". So, he was definitely taller than me. And I used to call him Big Mike. And I got it from watching the movie Bad Boys. And there was a scene in the movie where Will Smith and Martin Lawrence were talking about this guy called Big Mike Lowry. And the way they said it was really funny. And so back in the day when that movie first came out, that's what I said. I started calling him Big Mike Lowry. And so I would call him Big Mike all the time. Whenever he would call, I'd be like, hey, what's up, Big Mike? How are you? And then I think we also picked up another name for him, Aaron. and that was from the Key and Peele, substitute teacher skit on YouTube. If you've never seen it before, you've got to see it. And there is a student in there and his name is Aaron, but the substitute teacher mispronounces his name and calls him Aaron. And I thought that was funny. And so, Aaron was always either Big Mike or Aaron to us. And we loved that, having fun with his name. And, it was just an endearing thing. And, he always took it and laughed and enjoyed it. So I'll miss saying that. Anytime I'll see that skit or anytime I see Bad Boys, I'll be thinking about him as well. But, needless to say, as I said before, he's got 4 kids. He's got a wife. And I'm just going to do all I can to love up on them and be the best uncle that I can be for them. So again, those of you that listen to this that pray, please pray for me. Those of you that listen to this that meditate, please meditate for me. Think good thoughts, send light my way, do whatever you need to do because I will take it all because I'm hurting right now. And it's just kind of the way that it is. And I apologize. Well, I don't apologize, but I'm sorry that this isn't a normal episode of the podcast. It's just, I have 175 other episodes that you could listen to if you're trying to learn something more about Northwest Arkansas. I just figured I would be a little raw today and reflect on the life of a person that meant the world to me, that's no longer here and was taken too soon, at least in my estimation. But clearly God had plans and just needed a big old angel to handle some of his business. So with that said, I'm not going to question God's plans because they are what they are. And I do know that I'll see my brother at another time. So I appreciate you guys listening to this special episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we'll be back with some regularly scheduled programming. As I said, we've got a couple of episodes coming up that are going to be the best of episodes over the next couple of weeks as I go spend some time with family up in Boston. And then I'll be back and I've got some stuff in the hopper that I can't wait to share with you in July. And I think you're going to really enjoy it. But in the meantime, do me a favor. Call somebody up that you haven't spoken to in a while, but that means the world to you and tell them how much you love them, how much you care for them. If you're married, hug your spouse, your significant other, your life partner. If you've got kids, hug up on them. If you've got parents that are still alive, hug up on them. If you have friends or coworkers, without it being super weird, hug up on them responsibly and tell them how much they mean to you because life is short, folks. And you are here one day and gone the next. And trust me when I say this, even if you live to be 104, it's coming for all of us. We are all in line. We just don't know the hour or the day that we get called home. So be encouraged by that and make every minute count. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. We'll see you soon. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.